Welcome to the Buddhistisches Tor Berlin podcast. Join us for live recordings from classes, insightful talks, and guided meditations. Yeah, so this morning, as I said in the WhatsApp group, we have a WhatsApp group for this class. As I said, the question that came to my mind at least, was why are so many people, in the modern West at least, why do they like these little Buddha statues so much? Yeah, you see them everywhere. You see them in shops, in wellness clinics, restaurants, hairdressers. They're everywhere. These little statues. Yeah. So before I get into that, I thought I'd just, as a little icebreaker, I thought I'd recount a story from a good friend of mine called Aryapala. Yeah. And so he was working in what's called a right livelihood business, yeah? A place, basically a load of Buddhists, they come together, they make a business. And in this case, it was like a whole food shop, yeah? So they were selling, those kind of shops, the health food shops, they sell all these things, yeah? And I think it was about 20 years ago in South London, yeah? And so he's working there, and this guy came in, this American guy, and he was trying to basically sell his products. Yeah, he was trying to sell products. My friend was on the till. He's like, I'm not sure if we need it. And actually, it's got meat in it. And Buddhists, we're Buddhists here. We've got this whole business we're trying to make, and we'd rather not take your products. And he said, you're Buddhists? He said, yeah, we're Buddhists. And it turns out he was a bit of a kind of hardcore Christian. And he pointed to the little statue, one of these little statues that was in the shop, and said, you worship that little Buddha? And that always stuck with me. So anyway, I don't know why it's a funny story, but every time he tells it, it's a funny story, yeah? So, these little Buddhas, eh? And actually, it's funny, it's like weirdly enough, my mum seems to collect Buddhas, yeah? Every time she sees a Buddha somewhere, she'll just buy it. She's got loads of Buddhas, and she says to me, what are you going to do when I die? What are you going to do with all these Buddhas? So we'll see, won't we? But yeah, you see them everywhere, and I think a lot of the time people don't really know why they like them, in a sense. Yeah, they seem to pop up in people's, especially in IKEA garden centres. People want a Buddha in their garden, or they want a Buddha in their flat, and it's not really like an articulated thought or reason, is it? It's just they just appear in these places. Yeah, they appear in people's homes, and I think that's all right. Like I was saying in this text, I think it's okay. I think, in a way, I didn't used to think like that, but it's quite easy to criticize the fact that someone has a Buddha in their place and they don't even really know what Buddhism is. They don't know what a Buddha is. But images speak to us, don't they? So, in a way, I think it's fine. It's fine. It's, in a certain sense, it points to the fact that we're a lot of the time images in a sense are more motivating than necessarily thoughts and concepts. Yeah, for a lot of people, you look at your dream life, it's not so much, in your dreams, you're not so much motivated by complex concepts, are you? It's generally an image that kind of does something, and the kind of deeper part of us tends to be motivated by more concrete things like images rather than concepts, in a way. Yeah, so an image will speak to you and communicate something without you really perhaps understanding what it's saying. It's drawing you somewhere. It's kind of, it's a symbol for something maybe you want more of, or you want to move towards, something like this, yeah? And they speak for themselves, don't they? I mean, as I was saying, this little WhatsApp message, it's a bit like art in itself. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need extra explanation. It's communicating itself directly to us, isn't it? You sit there and something happens, and that's enough. Yeah, it's communicating itself to you. And in a way, these Buddha images are exactly the same. Yeah, they kind of communicate. They communicate something. I mean, yeah, there's Buddha images and there's Buddha images. I have to say, I think my favorite Buddha images are generally Japanese. Yeah, which I'll explain a bit more why in a while. But I think an interesting exercise can be to actually just look at one of these statues as if you'd never seen it before, yeah, and what it's actually trying to communicate, or what it actually is. Yeah. So here we have basically a guy sitting cross-legged with his arms in a certain position and his eyes half closed. And I'm not going to critique the kind of merits of this particular statue, but that's the general blueprint of all these statues. Yeah, some of them like the Japan. Maybe I like these Japanese statues, or rupas as they're called, is because they seem kind of grounded. They're kind of like mountain-like. Yeah, they have this kind of big base, and they're solid and they're upright, and they kind of, the center of gravity is a bit different, but they communicate something, don't they? I mean, generally with Buddha images, the limbs are all kind of, they look deliberate. Yeah, the limbs are kind of, there's not random limbs flying out everywhere. They're not doing something, and the figure itself is, you might say, contained. There's a sense of containment. Energy, there's a kind of, he's not sleeping, he's not there kind of like drifting off with his eyes half closed. There's a kind of sense of poise in the figure itself. There's a simple cloth, there's no fancy dress or anything, just a very simple cloth. And it communicates something, doesn't it? It communicates perhaps a sense of wholeness, a sense of presence, maybe even a sense of sanity. Yeah, the world seems pretty bonkers at the moment, and maybe it's nice to have a kind of an image that communicates some sense of sanity. It's the kind of it's a bit like an eye in the middle of a storm. The eye of the storm, rather. It kind of communicates some kind of center point. Maybe when a pendulum stops swinging, there's a kind of just. And it's actually quite an unusual, it's a strange symbol, isn't it, if you think about it, just to have some bloke sitting there cross-legged. What does that mean? I mean, I think the people are interested in these symbols because there's also some sense of the history of it as well, and what it represents, which we'll get onto later. But just as an image, it's quite unusual, In a way, it's someone not doing what we're normally doing, We're normally doing X, Y, and Z, rushing about our lives, and it's somebody who's present, obviously, because his spine's upright. And you do sometimes get the sense with some of these statues that if they opened their eyes, there'd be a kind of sense of kindness there, and an awareness. It's just kind of inherent in it, And like I say, with some statues, there's a sense of kind of immovability. You can't really push the base is solid. You can't really push them about, and you could even say a sense of fearlessness, And I think we all, or many people, seem to want this in their life, just the image itself communicates something, But it's interesting, there's that, and there's also what makes a Buddha. There's certain symbolic codes within a Buddha statue that makes a Buddha an actual Buddha. Like when I was living in this semi-monastic community, this monastery type place, and there was a local order member who used to live there, who was basically painting the entire insides of this shrine room, these huge images. And it was always interesting going to kind of visit him and talk about images, basically. I mean, one of his points was we're a bit too wordy as a culture, as Buddhists, modern Buddhists, and we're not really image-based enough. We don't have enough images. We're not articulated in images enough, as other cultures have been. So his whole life is basically devoted to living inside images as a practice, creating Buddhas, And it was quite interesting because he said he began by experimenting with slightly different looking Buddhas, Meaning more or less that image, but not with a bump on the head and not with long ears, And people are like, oh, what's that? It's a Buddha. And they're like, yeah, but where's the bump and the ears? And he's like, wow, it's already happened. Buddhism's only been at this time in the West for 20 years, and it's already codified into people's consciousness that a Buddha has to have a bump and it has to have long ears, and then it's a Buddha. And he thought, wow, that was quick. It didn't take long, but it kind of people would accept it then. It's just like, oh yeah, if it has these different attributes, then it's a Buddha, and if it's not, it's just some random bloke, you know. So he ended up incorporating all the bumps again, the earlobes, and I just thought it was an interesting observation that, well, yeah, all these different, you can't, once an image, once people know what these, once there's certain attributes to an image throughout time, you can't really change it. You know, you can't just kind of have a whole new Buddha that looks slightly different, yeah. Yeah, a little side note, I thought it was quite, I always found it quite amusing that there's these kind of, what are called the marks of a Superman, yeah, or marks of a superior man, whatever you want to call it, the Buddha, yeah, from the tradition. And talking about lumps and bumps, I think the earlobes, probably point to the fact that the Buddha was a prince before he was a Buddha, yeah. So I think the earlobes probably like you see in not so much these days in Berlin actually, or in the city, but you know, people that stretch, maybe you've got one, I don't know, I'm not looking at it too much, but you know those big earrings that you have like big, your earlobes are stretched out. I think back in the day they had got like big chunks of gold in there, and the Buddha obviously took them out when he renounced his previous royal existence, so you just had these like long earlobes dangling about. I'm assuming that's what happened. You know, I can't see another reason. But there's other kind of interesting, or kind of to us maybe bizarre attributes. So the Buddha was said to, the marks of the superior man, you might say, he has webbed fingers and toes. Webbed finger. I thought that's interesting as well. Huh? This is complete speculation and not Buddhism, so I'm just going to do my stupid speculation, but I just thought, oh, maybe it's to do with inbreeding, because like, you know, you have all these royal lineages, like in Europe, people were kind of inbreeding within royal families, and then in North Africa, and I thought maybe you end up with like weird, anyway, forget about that. Let's divert immediately from that, some distressed looking faces. Weirdly enough, the Buddha said to have blue eyes, which is bizarre, because he was from northern India. Long arms. Yeah, he said to have long arms so he could touch his knees without bending. I don't know what this is. And a tuft of white hair in between his eyes. So there's all these kind of funny little kind of markings. Yeah, and before we have symbols of the Buddha, some of you know, the Buddha wasn't depicted at all. Yeah, there was like a tree. I think the tree is the earliest known symbol for the Buddha. For various reasons. I think the tree is where the elders used to gather and dispense wisdom. The Buddha was also born under a tree, gained enlightenment under a tree, and died under a tree. So the tree was a symbol for the Buddha. An empty throne sometimes, yeah, because you can't depict enlightenment in that sense. You can't depict. Maybe it's similar to the Muslim thing of not depicting God. You know, you can't. The Christians did, but Muslims don't. You know, you can't depict something that's in the beyond. Sometimes footsteps, yeah. So there's all these different images before the actual Buddha, a figure of the Buddha emerges. And I think maybe after a time you need a human representation, yeah. Like they say, I think the human being is our highest category, at least for us. Or being, so you need a kind of human. You need the human back. You can't just have symbols. You need something that you can actually relate to on some level. Yeah. Yeah. So I think also it's not just what these statues communicate by themselves. You know, people. You can look at something and you can have an immediate sense. I mean, I know people that have seen Buddha images without knowing anything about the Buddha and been completely captivated by them. Yeah, they kind of, something in their body eases. It's almost kinesthetic. You're kind of there with something, with an object, and part of you just kind of relaxes and becomes more alert and changes your perspective. Yeah, and it's this. That's the whole point. Like images are a language as well, aren't they? Maybe some people say images are more like I was saying earlier, the kind of language of. We don't know about subconscious, don't even know what that means, but the depths, yeah? not your waking day-to-day mind, but your kind of deeper consciousness usually communicates to you in images, doesn't it? So that's definitely part of it. An image will communicate with you directly. Yeah? There's no need for mediation and concepts. It kind of, and it will move you as well. I think that's the point. I think even in our own lives, we normally have an image of ourselves, yeah, as we are now, who we'd like to present ourselves to the world as. I'd like to be seen in this way now, today. And then you have maybe an image of yourself 10 years in the future or 5 years in the future, how you'd like to be then. Yeah, it's generally not a concept. It's a picture of yourself and your life that you're kind of navigating and moving towards, isn't it? There's some kind of image, which is concrete. It's not an idea. It's concrete. It's a picture of yourself or where you are. And in a way, it's the same with practicing Buddhism, you could say, I think. If you are practicing Buddhism, there's a reason that Buddhists have images. It's not just to kind of, as an interesting thing to look at. It's a kind of an avenue to move towards your own potential. Yeah? So in our own tradition, for example, we have what are called visualization practices, where you sit down and you bring a Buddha or Bodhisattva, a Buddha to mind essentially, and maybe that Buddha's your potential, maybe it's your kind of pathway to that potential, but it's an image and it motivates you. I have to say it motivates you in a way that generally concepts don't. Yeah. And I think maybe part of the issue in the modern world is we feel like if we can't back up what we believe succinctly, conceptually, we're going to be fools. We're going to be ridiculed and laughed at. And it's good to use your brain, isn't it? It's good to actually know what you believe and why you're doing it and be able to explain that to somebody in a rational sense. But I think a lot of the time, speaking for myself, practicing Buddhism isn't necessarily a rational business. Yeah, I'm sorry to upset any hardcore rationalists or whatever you all are, and I think that's true for a lot of people. I've spoken to people that have been practicing for 40 years, longer, and they've point blank said, I don't even know why I'm practicing, and I couldn't really explain it. It's just something I have to do. There's no. Yeah, you can sit down and you can write a list. Oh, I do this, kinder. It's nice to be kind to people. Your life goes more smoothly. People like you. It's nice to hear wisdom's important so you don't make a big mess, blah, blah, blah. Enlightenment, human potential. But actually, there's something underneath it that you don't really understand, I think. Yeah, I think there's a kind of mysterious element to it which can sometimes manifest itself in an image. Yeah, and you're drawn towards something and you can spend your whole life drawn towards something that you don't really understand. And if you did understand it, it wouldn't really be worth going towards, as they say. Yeah, it's something that you don't know. It's a mystery, but you're becoming more and more engaged with that. Yeah, and that can become your whole life. I mean, I sometimes look at my own life and think, this is bizarre. It's like personally, like when I'm visualizing, I do this visualization meditation. It's a self-visualization practice. So I'm visualizing myself as a 16-year-old female green bodhisattva, yeah? And I think, this is quite strange, yeah? And this is my whole life, yeah? And I put my whole self into this. This is a bit bizarre, isn't it? But then other times I think it's no more bizarre than the way anyone else lives their life. We have some kind of image we're working towards that we think makes sense, but so much of it is kind of an unknown to us. We're just kind of stumbling along through the world, following these kind of points on the horizon, yeah? All that said, I think people do have a sense of, people do have some sense of what the Buddha represents. Yeah? It's not just a standalone image, otherwise I don't think people would have it. I don't think people would be so interested in having these statues in their places of work, in their homes. There's a sense of what it represents, and just through the interaction of Buddhism, at least in the West, over the past however many decades it's been now, there is some sense of what it represents, and I think, especially in this day and age, more and more people are attracted to it. I mean, that symbol, for a number of different reasons. I think one of them is it puts you in contact with something that is a lot bigger than you and even your world, even like the chaos that we're living in it at the moment will come and it will go. There'll be all sorts of madness, and then there'll be a new blossoming, happy times, sad times. And it's so easy to just get submerged in all this, isn't it? I mean, like Lalatarana said earlier in our check-in, you turned on the radio and turned it off again. I feel like that at the moment. I'm from England. I feel a bit ashamed to be from England at the moment. And it's the way it is, you know, you get all these kind of madness going on, and then they come and they go, and it's so easy to get caught up in it all and just be like, not like you're not supposed to feel it, but just to be kind of dragged through your life, yeah? And then it's almost a bit embarrassing, like a few months or a few years later, you're kind of like, what was that all about? Maybe it's a personal thing, it might be a relationship, it might be some dispute you had with somebody where it was all really serious and everyone's fighting each other and it's really important and you're really distressed. And then a few years later or a few months later, it's like, wow, what was that? You know? And I think in a way, these Buddha images or these statues, they can help to put you in touch with something that's seen it all, yeah, and been through it all and survived and even thrived through all kind of things that we probably can't even imagine sitting in this room, yeah. And I think that gives one some kind of strength. Actually, it gives me strength, yeah. Like living in such a kind of, especially now, like it does seem particularly bonkers. You know, the AI wars, all the kind of churning going on. I feel more than ever, I need to be in touch with something that has a kind of underlying timeless reality. Yeah, and that's the Buddha's claim. Yeah, that's the claim of Buddhism. It operates, whether there's Buddhists or not, and whether there's even humans or not, what the Buddha's talking about is real and in operation in any time and in any place. Yeah, so it kind of puts you in contact with something bigger than yourself. Yeah, and I think part of the reason so many of us suffer is because we're in our skin. That's it. We've got us in our little world. And if you don't have something outside of that, I'm not talking about fantasy, I'm just talking about something like a bigger picture, a bigger perspective, and something that can see you through every aspect of your life. It's very, very unpleasant. Yeah, I think, speaking personally, it can have a very bad effect on one's mental health. Yeah, I've definitely had, and still have periods where I'm just like, I don't feel good. And I think a lot of that is from a shrinking. Yeah, it's like you're shrinking into your skin. And you forget, like, you're just kind of temporary, and there's much more. I think these Buddha statues point to the fact there's much more to you as well. I mean, it's the whole point of Buddhism. It's not just a tradition, is it? It's pointing to your own, well, you could say greatness. Yeah, we don't like to be idealistic anymore in these days, but it could be pointing to your own kind of potential. Yeah, and not your optimized, not your fully green sludge drinking, weight training potential. I'm not talking about optimizing, but your deepest kind of potential. And so having a symbol for that in your living space, perhaps, whether you're conscious of it or not, is kind of, it keeps you in touch with something. It keeps you alive, perhaps, yeah? Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. Just a few little, don't know, food for thought, perhaps. Yeah. I do think it's important to find Buddha images that you actually like as well. Funny enough, I've got one Buddha image that my mum found. People know who know me, but my mum found before I was born in a market in West London. It's a Japanese figure, I think a Kamakura, I don't know. Anyway, but it's fantastic. I love it. It's got a real. You know, Buddha images are different. I've had some Buddha images where the center of gravity is a little bit too high. It's like people are the Buddha seems a little bit like meditating up there, and you think like you could just fall over. And I don't feel like, when I look at those particular rupas or statues, I don't feel particularly, I don't know, it's not really doing it. But somehow the other figures, they've got a sense of weight to them. You know, they're kind of really like a mountain. You can't really push them over. They've got a real presence. So I think in a way, yeah, it's like anything. If you can find an image that does it for you, then it's a good thing to have. Yeah.
The image that didn't work for me when, 40, 50 years ago, going to a Chinese restaurant, these fat Buddhas, although some of them with about a dozen babies in their arms.
Oh yeah. That didn't work for you. No?
Oh.
That didn't. Yeah, no, it's worth saying. I mean, with all the different kind of evolution and developments in Buddhism, there's all sorts of different figures, aren't there? There's like in Mahayana Buddhism, you've got all these kind of you've got, say, Avalokiteshvara there with 1,000 arms, standing Buddhas. They might talk to something more, well, seemingly more dynamic in you, yeah, something more energetic. There's wrathful figures. On those wrathful figures, it's quite interesting talking about. Have you seen those wrathful figures, wrathful Buddhas? You know, you get them in Tibetan Buddhism. They're like covered in flames. You could probably recognize some of. You look at like Hindu gods and goddesses. They're covered in flames. They got claws. Sometimes they're drinking blood. They're like stamping on figures. They're like bursting full of life. Yeah, they're really. I have to say, I think it was like looking at some of those that I thought, yeah, I could be a Buddhist. They're a bit like, you know what I mean? They had some kind of energy and kind of power to them. I thought, because I don't know. I think when I was younger, looking at a lot of Buddhas, I just thought it looked like a lifeless endeavor. It looked like people had given up and they just sit still, you know, and let everything happen. And I just thought, no, I don't want to do that. But yeah, these Tibetan figures are amazing. They're really amazing. Like the demon daggers, all this kind of stuff, yeah? These kind of dancing skeletons in the kind of, you know, animals ripping things. It's really great. And but there's a fantastic book called The Way of the White Clouds, which I know some of you have read, yeah, by Lama Govinda, who's like he's a German was a German Buddhist and a friend of the teacher in this school, the founder of this school, yeah. And I think I've got it right, but he was basically, he was an extraordinary figure. He was like going through Tibet, painting all these figures. This is before the Chinese came into Tibet and all the problems there are now, but it was kind of isolated. And there's a great, he recounts a great story where he's going through, you know, like, I mean, I can just imagine you've got these huge crevices, cracks in the ground, yeah, like these huge kind of broken, they're not valleys, they're like literally cracks in the ground, and you can navigate them if you've got someone who can navigate you through them, or you can get lost and die, I imagine. So, you know, all these, and there was a little cutout door in one of these crevices, you know, these kind of like narrow valleys, and he goes in, and he thinks it's a Buddhist temple, yeah, so he's got all these wrathful figures, and there's a priest there, and he thought, wow, there's like a Buddhist temple in this crevice, and he's like looking at all these figures. Then he realised they don't have third eyes, yeah, a little symbol there, third eye, yeah, and he's like, it was like a a shamanic temple of sorts, yeah, and I can't quite remember exactly how it was, but he kind of was like, he got out, yeah, it had a different atmosphere. It was like all the kind of blood and guts and blades and decomposing bodies and all these kind of, but without the third eye. So without the third eye, then you have problems.